Good morning. So, you're Vera, right? I'm Trucy Wright. That's right with a W, but not right, right? We're on your side. You can tell us anything. Please? Good morning. She speaks! Not bad. But I think you'd do better with a little smile, you know? You're so pretty. You need to sell yourself, you know? Juicy, let's take it easy for starters. Thank you for taking my case. Okay, well, that's a start, I guess. There she goes with the nail polish again. That's great, really. It's so cultured. Want to try? Ooh, really? Sigh, girls. The victim, Vera Misham, was a forger, and a stolen painting was found in his studio. A life of crime, really. Maybe one that led to his death. Okay. Well, we will now begin the trial of Vera Misham. Is the judge okay? His voice is all raspy and he's looking around all nervous like. The repercussions of today's trial will most likely be felt for a long time, and may indeed alter our legal system forever.
Today is a test of the justice system, and the first step toward a new order in our courts.
Daddy's secret mission.
The jurors will function like a jury. It is hoped their inclusion will help the courts to better reflect the people's will.
Why aren't there any jurors in the courtroom?
3 closed-circuit cameras watch this courtroom at all times. The jurors have access to everything that transpires. Jurist, Judge Will, and Judge Cool.
Now see here, Prosecutor Gavin. I was going to say that.
Ah, my apologies, Herr Judge.
Jurors, today, judge today's trial coolly, if you would be so kind.
The jurists are unbound by the letter of the law. They don't affect the trial with evidence, but by their feelings. And we're about to find out just what effect they're gonna have.
Very well, Prosecutor Gavin. The details of the case, if you would.
The victim is the painter Vera Misham. He was killed in his own studio. His coffee was poisoned. By whom, you ask? By none other than the defendant, Vera Misham.
There wasn't any poison in the coffee!
Achtung! Someone has been doing their homework. Indeed, poison was not present in the coffee, but on the mug itself.
The mug? Ah, residue was found on the rim, I see.
The autopsy report describes the manner of our victim's death.
The court accepts this as evidence. According to this report, the victim's death was caused by atroquinine poisoning.
A chemical compound that does not occur naturally. Lethal dosage is a mere 0.002 milligrams. A touch of atroquinine in the body is the touch of the Reaper's scythe.
Very well, Prosecutor Gavin. You may present your witness.
I have for you today a simple man for a simple case. A man who witnessed the murder in its entirety.
That journalist, no doubt.
The witness will state his name and occupation.
Ah, right! Well, for starters, my name's Spark Brushel. My job is a lone observer of the world. That wasn't his voice. What was it? Oh, it was like... Well, for starters, my name is Spark Brushel. My job is a lone observer of the world. In other words, a freelance journalist, right? Ahem! If you don't mind, I'd like to say something here for a record.
Yes, Mr. Brushel?
I dislike conclusions, specifically the aspect of jumping to conclusions. Preconceptions make Park Sandbox of endless desert waste. End quote. But you are a journalist. You said so yourself yesterday.
Well, that's true, yes.
But you must understand, I stand before you today a man with a dream. I'm offering you my testimony in exchange for exclusive rights to the story. Scoop turns Mr. Brushel into that Mr. Brushel. End quote.
Let's hear your testimony then, shall we?
A simple case, eh, Gavin? For me, the jury is still out.
This should be fun.
I visited the studio around 9 o'clock that night to do the interview. First outside at the end of the atelier, journalistic history made, end quote. His daughter brought us coffee right after we started. And you know what happened next? Star falls, end quote. No one else entered the room beside her the whole time.
That does sound like a simple case. Unless you were the one who poisoned him.
What are you saying, Judge?
Ahem. Need I remind you the cameras are rolling today? I felt the need to be a bit dramatic.
You didn't do it, did you?
Me do a thing like that? Come on, that's like a newsmaker making the news, end quote. Or even contemporary witch hunt, end quote. I know, wild accusations rock courtroom, end quote.
Rock indeed.
Prosecutor Gavin sure looks like he's having fun. I'm so happy for him.
Very well, Mr. Justice, your cross-examination, please. End quote.
I visited the studio around 9 o'clock that night to do the interview. 9 o'clock at night? Isn't that a little late for an interview? If the great painter Vera Misham says come at 9 o'clock, believe you me, I go at 9. First, and as it turned out, last interview with such a prolific painter. Right. Can you tell us what it was like when you arrived? Well, the first outside at the end of the atelier. Journalistic history made. End quote. You were the first reporter ever in Drew's studio? Posterity will look back on that night as a turning point in journalistic history. A basically insignificant step for all mankind, but a giant step for that Brushel guy. End quote.
If no one on the outside ever had access to the studio, then it would serve to reason that the deed was done by an insider.
By which he means Vera did it.
So, how did this epoch-making interview go?
His daughter brought us coffee right after we started. Do you mind being a little more specific? Oh, let me tell you, I enjoy a cuppa. In fact, it all began when I was in 3rd grade. No, wait, but that's not what I meant.
I believe I know what Herr Forehead is driving at. This coffee the victim was served. Did anyone other than the defendant touch it?
Right, that. That's what I was gonna say, really. Well, now, if you've got a question to ask, you best straight up ask it. That's what I tell all the new recruits, several times if necessary. Ride for a great schooler. That's my motto. Which isn't to say I can only ride grade school levels. Who touched the coffee? Dunno. I was in the back looking at the studio's equipment when she served it.
And what happened next?
And you know what happened next? Star falls. End quote. What's this about a star falling? Star falls, huh? It's like an old telegram. Send money over. Zowie! You don't know? That's like a journalism code word. An important personage passes away. A star falls. Get it? But there's no gravity in space, is there? I wouldn't think stars could fall, really. Does this matter? Oh boy, this is good stuff. Good stuff. How about star breaks? Nah, next punch. I know. Star dies. Nah, lacks imagination. Of course, you could go with Drew dies. Straight to the point. I like it. I think we need to hear about something a little more substantial. So, you drank the coffee that Vera served you too?
Course, when someone serves you coffee, you drink it.
That's what my old boss always used to say. Never did get what he meant by it though. But you're still alive, which is to say, you didn't die.
Of course now. No point falling before you're a star. End quote.
That's not exactly what I was getting at.
What were you getting at then? You know the poison was on the rim, not in the coffee.
Oh yeah. There were 2 cups on the tray she brought, and one of the cups had Drew's signature painted on the side.
No chance the guest would take that one by mistake, I guess.
Well, Mr. Justice, was that testimony important?
So Brushel drank the coffee too. Doesn't look like this is gonna lead to much.
Very well, please continue with the testimony.
Hold on. We're not done here. Let's think about something else. Something more substantial. You say Mr. Misham had the coffee too, but did you actually see him drink the coffee?
Course. He who sees it wins, but he who says it wins bigger. End quote. I live in a man sees dog eat dog and writes about it world. Yet? I guess I can't say I saw him drink it, really. He had one so-called sip, if that. Man puts lips to mug, drinks. Man puts lips to mug, drinks. End quote. That poison is quite virulent, I hear. My stomach did a so-called somersault, since I'd gulped down that coffee without so much as a second glance at it. Wait, maybe something's there. Some kind of so-called trick. Anyone want to venture, I guess? For the record?
Does this guy have a pause button?
Well, Mr. Justice, did you find that testimony valuable?
The coffee Mr. Misham drank. That has to be important somehow. Nah.
Very well, please continue with the testimony.
About when Mr. Misham passed away.
Oh boy, what a scene that was. He puts his coffee mug down with a crash, right? Yes, and then? And the cold finger of death touches his spine. Life's flame sputters and fails. So cold was that touch, he could do naught but tremble uncontrollably. Actually, life's flame is a little tired. Life's river froze over. Yes, that's a go.
I think he's starting his article already. Could you describe that a little more simply?
Well, as you can imagine, I was pretty surprised. He hit the floor, as they say. Artist sees his final performance, end quote.
Atropine paralyzes the central nervous system. The body arches back like a bow. The limbs...
That's quite enough of that. Some of us want to be able to sleep tonight. Oh yeah? Well, I want details. Lots of juicy details.
For that, you can listen to our last year's hit single, Atropine My Love, by the Governors, available at all major music outlets.
The point here is that the victim died of atropine poisoning. Well, Mr. Justice, how did you find that testimony?
Well, as an account of the moment of the victim's death, I'd say it's very important. Please add it to the testimony.
Very well. The court requests the witness add this account to his testimony.
If he says that he died immediately. Huh. Those spasms? Okay. Hold on, I'll be right back. Alright, so from the way that old Brushel here was describing the death, it sounded like he took a sip, Misham took a sip of the coffee and immediately started getting affected by it, but that's why I was excited to have him add this to the testimony, but
Yeah, there's no specificity. There's no specific details on how atroquinine poisoning happens and how long it takes. Emma told us that it takes 50 minutes until death, or 50 minutes until the effects kick in. Alright, well, none of this we can use against this new statement, so let's have him... Huh. Okay. Do we press this already? To enjoy. Oh, okay. Okay. It's been so long since we went for that I forgot that we already pressed on it. Alright. Alright, sure.
Those spasms. That was definitely death by poison.
You say it was definitely death by poison. How can you be so sure?
Hey, look, I'm a journalist. I've seen a lot of things. I've had more than my share of experiences with so-called poisonings. Man eats fishy fish, goes bye-bye. End quote.
Food poisoning doesn't count. Should I get him to talk about something else? Okay. Here we go. You say Mr. Misham had the coffee too, but did you actually see him drink the coffee?
Of course.
Okay. This seems to be the important bit, so let's have him change this one. The victim drank his coffee, then immediately... Oh. But he said the same thing... Whatever.
Oh yeah, you can go to press with that one.
Your Honor, this is a vital piece of information. Please add it to the testimony.
Very well, the witness will add this to his testimony. Vital, right. He had one sip, if that. The next moment, he was on the floor.
So he either took a sip or he didn't, and then he fell over.
Oh yeah, indubitably. Just like that, wham bam.
So Mr. Misham drank the coffee and fell over immediately. I think Brushel's telling the truth, too. Should I get him to talk about something else? There's no real need to change the testimony. The problem with the testimony is already pretty obvious.
No one else entered the room besides her the whole time.
Can you say that for sure?
For sure? Sure, I'm sure. Drew's studio in the big place, kiddo. I'd know if it was someone else had come in. I'd know it if someone else had come in.
What if they had been hiding in there from before? Even if someone had been hiding in the studio, they hardly could have poisoned that mug without anyone noticing.
You think I, Spark Brushel, would miss something as obvious as that? No way.
He sure makes it sound exciting. I guess that's his job. There's only one moment we need to focus on, really.
The moment when Drew Misham died?
Exactly. There has to be something there.
Okay. There we go. Right, but what do we present? How can we prove that atroquinine isn't immediate? I don't know. The autopsy, I guess? Sure, let's try the autopsy.
Your Honor, what do you think about the witness's statement?
I'm not sure I follow you.
It clearly contradicts the, I thought...
You don't sound very sure, Mr. Justice. Objection overruled.
I don't think that won me any points with the judge.
Okay, the cup itself? Really? Why?
You know what I have a problem with? A particular property of the poison used, atroquinine.
Oh, Prosecutor Gavin was quite clear about the poison. A lethal dosage of 0.002 milligrams paralyzes the central nervous system. If you drank that, even you, Mr. Justice, would be reduced to a quivering pile. Why are you using me as an example?
Unfortunately, we weren't told everything. There was a vital omission in Prosecutor Gavin's information.
An omission?
Atricinin is as virulent as he says, but death doesn't come upon ingestion. Not immediately. That's because atricinin is slow-acting!
Slow acting? What?
According to one forensic scientist.
It's one of the most virulent poisons, but it's absorbed into the body astonishingly slowly. It takes at least 50 minutes from the time of ingestion for adverse effects to show.
If we suppose that the moment Mr. Misham sipped the coffee was when he sealed his fate, then he would still have had time to enjoy his last cup of joe.
Order! Order! What's the meaning of this? If what the defense says is correct, why, that contradicts the entire testimony we just heard.
Well, Mr. Brushel, anything to say on the record?
Slow acting. C-S-L-O-W-A-C-T. It was virulent, alright. Even then, it had already begun digging its claws into the journalist. He's working on his scoop.
Sigh.
It's Brushel, yeah? Herr Brushel, let's take a trip back down memory lane.
Huh?
Did the victim really die the instant he took a sip? Think it over. This is vital.
You know what I think? I think that was a not-so-subliminal suggestion. End quote.
I admit it does cause a problem if he died when you say he died. I would be forced to say au revoir to my simple case. And you would be forced to say farewell to your article.
Come again?
You can't write a story based on conjecture, can you? And as the case drags on, other reporters will pick up the scent. And you'll be forced to kiss your exclusive scoop goodbye.
Scoop! Scoop! Look, wait. Just wait a second. Hey, look, hey, just one second. We're waiting. Out with it. I think I just recalled a so-called important detail. A revival of recollection, end quote. A story survival, end quote.
Attorney utterly confused, end quote.
Actually, I did notice something when I visited the studio. I'd heard of poison that takes a sweet time, see?
But not what I've been saying for the last few minutes, apparently.
Mr. Brushel, are you saying you noticed something that explains what happened? You bet I am. The antidote for a poisonous contradiction. End quote, you might say.
Or, I still have no idea what you're talking about. End quote, I might say.
I figured it out, but only after an in-depth interview. See, thanks to my journalism skills, I know who poisoned that coffee. Order! Order! Order!
As far as I can tell, the witness is standing by his testimony. That Mr. Misham died the instant after he drank.
Of course I'm standing by my testimony. My dream of exclusive rights to the story.
I suppose it was too much to hope for.
Well, what was?
Of course he wouldn't choose the simple case, not him.
Him?
Phoenix Wright, who else? Achtung, Herr Brushel. Report for us if you would. What is it that you noticed?
This court is a critical trial of the jury system. I'm afraid no room for doubt is permissible. You will testify to the court about what you noticed. When I arrived at the studio, Mr. Misham was at his desk. He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope. I thought nothing of it at the time, of course. Now that I think about it, what if he was writing a suicide note?
What?
A suicide note? Yeah, he had this look on his face. Man's face inscrutable as a quadratic equation, end quote. Suicide. Poor Mr. Misham. But that means Vera's innocent.
Would someone commit suicide in the middle of an interview? Oh,
Very well, you may begin your cross-examination.
yeah. As much as I want to go along with this, I don't think it's true.
When I arrived at the studio, Mr. Misham was at his desk.
Was there anyone at the studio other than Mr. Misham?
Well, his daughter Vera, of course.
Was anyone besides Mr. Misham and Vera present?
Not a single one. Not a cat, not a rat, not even a mouse.
The only person who didn't belong to that studio there was you, wasn't it, Mr. Brushel?
I know what you're doing. I know your game. I turn to use this classic Ramsden phenomenon ploy, end quote.
If you intend to suggest that this reporter is a suspect, I'm sure you also intend to present evidence supporting that assertion, correct? In the meantime, let's move along, shall we?
He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope.
So he put the letter away when he saw you.
Early reporter gets worm, end quote. That's my secret.
Not sure I follow.
It's the night of the interview. I arrive 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The handle turns, the door opens, and I barge in.
Are you sure that's okay to do? I mean, isn't that an awful entry, really?
Mr. Misham still seemed to think so. You should have seen him. He crammed his letter into that yellow envelope as fast as he could. I know a secret when I spot one, and that was one. It does seem significant. Well, Mr. Justice?
I wonder. It does have the ring of something important.
Sure.
The defense finds this testimony vital, Your Honor.
Very well. Please add it to the testimony then. Hey, why not? My account comes free of charge. It was a yellow envelope. I heard it was left at the crime scene.
And you saw him seal this yellow envelope with a letter.
Hey, don't look at me like that. I saw what I saw.
Apollo, you think this might be our big break? Yeah. What I need is to show some decisive evidence now.
I thought nothing of it at the time, of course.
You didn't think anything might be wrong at the time?
Hey, when I go in for an interview, that's what I'm there to do. Interviewer finds looking more effective than Karen. End quote.
So what about now? Thinking back on it, did you sense anything strange in Mr. Misham's behavior?
Well, yeah. That's why I'm telling you all this to begin with. Very well, continue with your testimony. Now that I think about it, what if he was writing a suicide note?
A suicide note?
Well, yeah, don't quote me or anything. I'm just saying it's a possibility, you know?
So he didn't actually check the letter?
Course not. It was sealed. Contents of can unknown until can is opened. End quote.
You can always check the label. Do you think Mr. Misham was writing a suicide note? If he was, that would solve the case in a jiffy. Kinda makes me wonder about that letter. Alright. This is easy. This is almost too easy. As it just so happens, there was a single letter in a desk drawer at the scene. In a red envelope!
What?
Prosecutor Gavin?
Yes?
Was a yellow envelope found at the scene of the crime?
Unfortunately, no. But, Herr Forehead, it's easy to mistake the color of an envelope.
I guess. But not this envelope. You see, it was postmarked already. 7 years ago.
Well, Mr. Brushel, I can explain that. Drew, right? He wanted to get that letter in an envelope pronto. Get it out of sight of my beady eyes, right? So he grabbed the needless envelope and crammed it away.
What about the whole red and yellow envelope contradiction, chump?
Well, Mr. Justice, have you anything to say to the witness's claim?
That night, the victim put a letter he had been writing in a red envelope. That's impossible.
Ah, I like your expression. So full of confidence.
It's simple, really. As it just so happens, the defense team investigated the contents of this envelope. with the assistance of a forensic scientist.
What?
Note that this letter is addressed to Vera Misham.
Who?
Why would he address a letter to himself? Let alone send a suicide note to himself?
I've been scooped! Order! 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 Mr. Brushel, can you explain this to the court? Oh my. How could I have forgotten? I suppose this happens to the best of us. Reporter gets old, forgets lots. End quote. I'm still waiting for an explanation, Mr. Brushel. Well, that's the thing, see? After he put his letter in that envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for summer.
His desk drawer?
Yeah, a stamp. A so-called postage stamp. End quote. A stamp? Whatever for? Well, to mail his letter. What else? And then, why, yes, I think I saw him put it in his letterbox. Yes, it was a yellow envelope, and he put it in that box. Well, apparently, this yellow letter has nothing to do with it. Oh, how I wish it did. Just think if that were a suicide note. What a story. Star writes suicide note in front of reporter. False. End quote. Ahem, as I was saying, that has nothing to do with this case. That said,
Yes, Your Honor.
it makes me wonder about the contents of that red envelope. $100,000 is quite a good deal of money.
So, this was from 7 years ago, yeah?
So, am I finished? Am I finished here? I was thinking of, going home to start riding.
I understand what should be pretty obvious to anyone. But when you catch the scent of a story, you make that, rather unique face.
Hey, come on. Attorney has active imagination. Little else. End quote. Even I noticed something, and my eyes aren't what they used to be. You know, I'm starting to understand what all this perceiving stuff is about.
Judge has active imagination. End quote.
Please, continue with your testimony. Tell us about the scent of a story. Hey, I'm the one asking the question here. Usually.
Oh, it's an entirely new testimony. Okay.
Actually, took a bit of work to get a thumbs up on the interview. Reporter leverages story, gets his interview. End quote. Story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. That red envelope probably had something to do with it. Say what you will, but Drew's talent was without compare. So, you threatened to go to press with this story. That's how you got your interview? Blackmail? Well, yeah. I mean, no. It wasn't exactly black. I'm not. Hey, something wrong, Mr. Brushel? Look, hey, this is my story. My tidbit. Journalist's info is livelihood. End quote. I see. While you have me chatting away in here, what's going on out there? What if some Wally Wadsworth or Sally Scooper gets wind of my story? They could be going to press while I'm going to waste. The court feels your pain, Mr. Brushel. Mr. Justice, let's pick up the pace.
A certain case 7 years ago. Wait, 7 years ago? Alright, before we begin, I'll be right back. Alright then. Sounds like this fine, upstanding gentleman here is also involved somehow in that fateful case 7 years ago. Yeah. Let's do this.
Actually, it took a bit of work to get a thumbs up on the interview.
The victim, Vera Misham, had an aversion to reporters.
Boy, I guess. Not even my considerable charms did much for him. Till I finally got my thumbs up, that is.
Maybe you can elaborate on that a bit for us?
Reporter leverages story, gets his interview. End quote.
Exactly what sort of story was this?
Oh, a little one, like I said. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing in between. End quote. I might have suggested I had a lead on this particular story, but I didn't threaten or cajole or nothing. Honest.
So, a suggestion was enough to get an interview. Mr. Misham must have really wanted to keep it under wraps.
Story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago.
A certain case 7 years ago. Tell us, what case?
Let me say one thing, Mr. Turner, and you can quote me on this. I can't talk about that case.
Why not?
It's about journalistic pride and staunchness and credibility and connections. Journalists reveal sources only over his dead body. End quote. So what'll it be? Gonna strangle me? Damn man don't tell tales, Mr. Turner.
Sounds pretty determined not to talk. Our chances of breaking his will aren't looking good.
That red envelope probably had something to do with it.
On the one hand, we have your story, and on the other, this letter. What makes you think the two are related?
Oh, I was just saying it's possible. Call it reporter's intuition. End quote. Hey, I say a lot of things. You gonna pick all of them, Pa? Be my guest.
All of them? No, just the incredibly suspicious ones.
I see. Anything else to add about Mr. Misham? Say what you will, but Drew's talent was without compare.
Just how amazing was Mr. Misham's talent?
Huh? Hoo-wee, boy. I mean, hey, he's a star, man, a star. The flow of his brush is like a great undulating river across the canvas. Artists paint, light up studios like sun. End quote.
This guy is full of wacky gestures. That one just now was wackier than usual.
He looks kind of nervous to me, Paul.
Definitely. I'm sensing something different than before here. Maybe it's time to bring out you-know-what.
That testimony left a bad taste in my mouth.
It all makes sense. Nothing jumps out as ridiculous.
I wonder what this story he's talking about is. It must have been good to get an interview with a famous recluse like that.
Something powerful enough to drag Drew Misham out of hiding. I wonder, maybe it had something to do with Mr. Misham's art.
Okay. Apparently there's a tick here somewhere. I guess we don't have anything to prove that he was a forger. Okay. Let's see. Huh. Where could it be? The eyes? The ears? It's not gonna be the throat again, right? Gotta catch him swallowing something? Maybe there's a bead of sweat somewhere? It's gotta be on the talent part, right? When he says Drew's talent, because he knows what Drew's talent was. But, okay. Right. I don't know what to look out for, though. Do we get penalized?
Yo! Don't tell you don't like that, don't go heart attack. Don't yell over something like that, you give a guy a heart attack.
Ah! Sorry! It's just... the way you were moving just now. It was particularly suspicious.
What's that supposed to mean? So usually I'm just sort of averagely suspicious?
Sorry, my mistake. You're fine. I know I'm up to something here. Time to focus. What am I supposed to look out for? Am I on the wrong thing? Oh. Huh.
Gotcha!
Shit. Maybe we're barking up the wrong tree. Let's try this one. Maybe we'll find something here. Has to be on talent, right? Has to be on talent. That's gotta be the word that trips him up, but still don't know what to look for. What is his tell? What is his tick? Nothing is jumping out. Nothing is standing out. The fuck? What is that? Is that sweat? What is? It's like a fucking beating heart. It's like a fart cloud. What the fuck is that? Alright.
Sweat much, Mr. Brushel?
Hey, yeah, well, a man can't help his glands, you know.
It's more than that. When Mr. Misham's talent was mentioned, you suddenly began to sweat buckets. You're hiding something about his talent.
What? That's ridiculous.
Evidence time. Let's show where Mr. Misham's true talent lay. It just so happens I have evidence showing the talent mentioned in that letter.
I can't help but wonder what the court is supposed to conclude from this evidence.
Oh,
Other than you made a horrible mistake. Man burns bridge, forgets to cross first. End quote.
let's try that again. All I have to do is reveal what Mr. Misham really was. That shouldn't be so hard, right?
Fuck you. How? It has the previous sketch right here. How is this not conclusive proof?
Whatever. Just so happens I have evidence showing the talent mentioned in that letter. This painting was found in Mr. Misham's studio. There are two problems with this painting. The first is, it wasn't painted by Mr. Misham. The second is that there was another painting in the studio, which looked exactly like this one, except it was only half done. Then we have a letter discussing a payment of $100,000, which suggests a certain business operation. The business of making forgeries. Ow! Still don't know why I couldn't have presented the other one, but that is all, Your Honor.
Everyone, please, everyone. Can we keep this private? Please. This is my story, my scoop. Forgery. That is a serious crime. True Misham is known as an artist these days, but there were rumors he dabbled in another kind of art until a few years back. Another art meaning forgery? True Misham was talented, alright. Talented at making precise, detailed fakes. Fact that certain criminal elements were quick to discover.
Criminal elements? What? You can't seriously be talking about...
Exactly. I'm talking about forged evidence. The rumor started circulating 7 years ago. 7 years ago? So, are we trying to say that this letter, this payment of $100,000 was for... Exactly. Forged evidence nets tiny profit. End quote. Order! 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 Why, it's like our victim was living a double life.
Aha, this is my chance. So the victim had ties to the criminal world, right? He could have had plenty of enemies we know nothing about. This is my first time hearing of this criminal world. We certainly found no criminal connections when we conducted our investigation. But how do you explain all of this money? We have to admit there's a possibility of some illegal activity here. But there's no proof tying this letter to our case. Our case was and remains simple from the beginning. Only the defendant could have poisoned that mug that night. And you, of course.
Hey! The only thing I poison him in my pen when I'm writing reviews. Mr. Brushel, your testimony to this point has been quite unreliable. It doesn't speak well of your reporting acumen. What are you talking about? My journalism is rock solid. Journalism so hard you could stand an elephant on it. End quote. In any case, let's hear a summarized recap of your testimony. If we can ascertain the situation in that studio from the recap, the trial is over.
Apollo,
What's he talking about? The cross-examination showed Mr. Brushel didn't have reason or means to poison him. As long as there are no other suspects. The killer had to be Vera. That's what. This next testimony is our last chance.
Mr. Brushel, your testimony, please.
Alright. I'll be right back. Alright then. A testimony recapping the last 3 flawed testimonies. What could possibly go wrong?
The only other person in the studio that night was the defendant. It was Vera who poured the coffee. She has admitted as much herself. The only thing that touched Drew's lips during the interview was that mug. And nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing. Clearly, the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter.
A nice testimony. Clear, succinct, succinct? Fuck is that word? And without room for doubt.
Oh, shucks. You really think so? I believe this clarifies the situation that night. Very well, Mr. Justice. You may begin your final cross-examination.
Right. I still have one trump card left to play. And I won't let this trial end until I use it. What would that be?
The only other person in the studio that night was the defendant.
But that doesn't prove Vera poisoned it.
How many times have we heard that one half our head? The poison reached his victim via that coffee mug. And from where did that coffee come from? Not to beat a dead horse again and again, perhaps you could fill us in?
I'm on it. You need a horse beat? I'm your man. It was Vera who poured the coffee. She has admitted as much herself.
And you witnessed her pouring the coffee?
Course I didn't witness it. When she came in with that tray, the coffee was already poured and steaming.
Let us not forget the defendant has admitted to pouring the coffee herself. I heard her statement. I poured, I served, and I killed.
What?
That last part was just a little joke.
I don't think I'm gonna get anywhere with this coffee mug. I need to find another weak spot in this case.
The only thing that touched Drew's lips during the interview was that mug.
You're sure about that?
Well, to be really precise, I was busy gobbling mint candies the whole time.
One of those candies might have been poisoned!
Yet, at the time of the autopsy, no fresh fragrance of mint filled the room. And no mint residue was found.
It was a long shot anyway.
Don't tell me you're still trying to prove this. You think the victim ate, drank, or otherwise ingested something other than coffee?
Well, Mr. Justice, if you have some proof...
The possibility is there, I can feel it. Just maybe not prove it, not yet. And possibility isn't gonna cut it, not now. Mr. Misham ingested that poison via a route other than that coffee. Well, this, maybe. Sure, let's give it a shot. Proof is possible. I gotta risk it.
Oh, excellent. Let's see your proof then. Please show us your evidence. What evidence shows that the victim wasn't poisoned via his coffee mug?
Must I explain this over and over and over? We don't need possibilities here, Haverhead. We need proof.
I know that.
You should also know that every proof has its moment. Perhaps you're a bit early?
I can tell you what we know at this point. The victim put nothing to his mouth but that coffee mug.
Sigh, another hole in this case that needs plugging before I can prove anything. But first things first, I'd better uncover a weak spot before I try to strike again.
On with the cross-examination.
Okay, well, there you go. The game literally told me that I was too early for that, so there you go. Yep.
Another left that studio after he died. Nothing.
Not one thing? You sure?
Yep, sure as sure can be. Well, with one exception. One exception? What? Journalist Spock Brushel does interview, leave studio. End quote. Hey, come on. It's a joke. Get it? Not funny, I know, but still.
Did something leave the studio that night? Why does that sound familiar? Where have I heard something like that before?
Now that we have proven our witness is a comedian of sorts, I'd like to turn to our defense attorney before returning to the testimony. Do you have any idea what, if anything, might have left the studio that night?
Do we present the frame now? Sure. I think one thing might very well have left the studio that night, actually. A certain something that has vanished from the crime scene.
By which you mean something other than our witness?
Of course.
Don't tell me. Vera Misham?
Believe me, any comic relief I may provide is entirely unintentional.
Then let's see what you have got for us, Mr. Justice.
Well, this thing wasn't at the scene of the crime, so I can't show it to you. But I do have evidence that shows how it could have been taken from the scene.
I found Prosecutor Gavin more amusing than this guy, really.
If that's what's comic relief, why do I not feel amused?
We want evidence, not entertainment, Mr. Justice.
There goes my career in stand-up! Well, this thing wasn't at the scene of the crime, so I can't show it to you. But I do have evidence that shows how it could have been taken from... Okay. Fine, I get it. This is the only link between that studio and the outside world.
A little box?
What did Mr. Brushel just tell us? When he entered the studio on the night of the murder, the victim had just finished writing a letter.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah, it was true.
Furthermore, he went on to tell us that he put the letter in a yellow envelope and put it in the letterbox.
Oh!
But that very same letterbox was empty. In other words, that night the yellow envelope disappeared.
Ah, yes, intriguing. So an envelope has disappeared from the scene of the crime. Of course, this changes nothing.
Huh?
Here's the point, Mr. Justice. What we're trying to figure out here is how the poison got into Mr. Misham. Is it really important that this envelope the witness says he saw disappeared?
Well, if it did disappear, then something did leave the studio that night. That seems very important to me.
Very well then, the witness will add this to his testimony. You got it.
I still think this fails to change anything, Hairforehead.
I wouldn't be so sure. A letter disappeared from the crime scene that night. This is exactly the opening I've been looking for.
A letter was put in the post from the studio, but I hardly think that matters.
Nothing could be more serious than an envelope disappearing from that studio. And you were hiding that fact from us.
Yeah, well, actually...
I don't argue the possibility that a letter disappeared from that studio. But Hairforehead, isn't there a much more serious question before us?
Right. How Mr. Misham was poisoned. I know. But Mr. Brushel's testimony has changed, which means the facts of the case have too. And what he's told us means something entirely different now. I'm starting to think.
Let's keep thinking, Apollo. Clearly, the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter.
You say clearly as though it were obvious. But this claim that the defendant poisoned the victim is merely conjecture.
Yeah, well, you see, in my business it's all about making the most ridiculous things sound right. A bad habit, I know. Yeah, well, actually, I guess this is more a case of ridiculous journalist sounds wrong, end quote. The court is forced to agree with you. Please refrain from wild conjecture. Understood and loud and clear.
Only I could believe that. What do you think, Apollo? Everything he's saying seems so not flawed. Well, that's kind of what you want from a testimony, really. I need to keep my eye on what matters. How and why was Drew Misham killed? Vera poured the coffee. That's not gonna change. But if that coffee didn't kill him, I need to find what did and prove it.
Okay.
Yeah, how do we prove that it matters? Your Honor, that statement contradicts his evidence.
It does? I don't see anything contradictory.
You sure about that?
Objection overruled. Try to think before you make accusations, Mr. Justice.
Ah, that didn't go so well.
Okay, what the fuck? Oh, shit. Okay. So... Try that again.
You do understand what you need, yeah? Proof, Hefferhead, not possibilities.
Of course. And, Prosecutor Gavin, I hope you understand. I'm ready to give you that proof.
What did you say?
I have proof of the disappearing envelope.
I saw him writing a letter, I did. Which was picked up by the mailman, I assume.
Of course, which means that envelope had a stamp on it.
A stamp?
Oh! As we all know, stamps come with dried glue on the back. In order to use the glue, you have to wet it by licking the stamp.
No one worth talking to actually licks stamps in this day and age.
Even if you wanted to talk to him, you couldn't. He's dead after all.
Okay, so he licked a stamp. But wait, how does that explain the achukunin on the rim of the coffee mug?
If he licked the back of a poisoned stamp, the poison would get on his tongue, yes? What would then happen if he put the coffee mug to his mouth? Those traces on the mug weren't the killer's doing. It was the other way around.
What?
The coffee mug didn't poison Mr. Misham. Mr. Misham poisoned Mr. Misham.
Order! 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 But that doesn't... Does it?
Recall, if you would. Achukunin is a slow-acting poison, yes? The poison entered his body when he put the stamp on that envelope. But his time wasn't up until the very moment he touched his lip to that cup of joe.
You have something to add, Mr. Brushel?
Uh-oh, his nose is picking up another scent.
As I believe I mentioned earlier. Well, that's the thing, see? After he put his letter in that envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for something. Yes, a stamp. A so-called postage stamp. End quote. But you know, I don't seem to remember him ever finding one. Maybe it just ran out.
Incidentally, we searched the desk drawer at the scene of the crime. There were no stamps. Not a single one.
That does pose a problem. How will you prove that the stamp was coated with poison?
Actually, I'm glad no other stamps were found. It makes proving the stamp he used was poison possible.
Good show, good show. You can't even prove there was a stamp at the scene in the first place.
Well, let's hear what the defense has to say anyway. Where is your evidence that proves the existence of this poison stamp?
Alright.
Well, that certainly is a cute little frame, and by little I mean really little.
It was on the victim's desk, Your Honor. Quite empty, as you can see for yourself.
I noticed that too during my inspection. So what?
Apparently you weren't as observant as you should have been. You see, when he saw this frame, it was missing something quite important.
Missing something?
Yes, a pale bluish stain on the inside of the frame. Atropine residue!
What? Why wasn't I told about this?
The frame is only 2 inches square. The face of the frame is even smaller. Maybe an inch wide at most.
You aren't saying...
Oh, but I am. Tell me, what fits in such a small frame? A commemorative stamp, perhaps?
Commemorative...
Order! 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 The poison stamp was in this frame?
Impossible.
Prosecutor Gavin?
Why would he put something like that on his desk? Don't tell me he had it there so he could commit suicide if the mood struck.
You know, can I say something? I had a thought, see? What, Mr. Brushel? And please stop jittering around like that. The victim was a forger, right? There's a lot of money in that line of work. Forger forges friends. Makes enemies too, ain't quote.
So the poison stamp might have been a murder weapon, aimed at him.
Oh, rich. That's rich. Leave the ridiculous flights of fancy to the governor's song lyrics, please. Finally, something we agree on. The stamp was a murder weapon? Nonsense. Murder is a simple business. Who would go to such lengths? No one.
Oh, I disagree.
Come again?
Recall, if you would, the victim's reclusive lifestyle. Vera Misham hid from the world. He avoided meetings. His only contact with the outside world was the mail.
The mail?
Now, if you wanted to kill someone you couldn't meet but you knew read letters, a stamp would be the perfect weapon.
Ridiculous. Where's your proof? I want proof. Show us evidence that this poison stuff was sent to him as a murder weapon.
I might not have evidence, per se, but things are finally starting to come together. What is it, Apollo? Your fists are trembling. I think I know what happened. I don't believe it, but I can see it. I think I know how Mr. Misham was killed.
Well, fill us in, Mr. Justice.
A certain piece of evidence points to the truth, Your Honor. I can show you how someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Misham to the stamp of death. Someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Misham the stamp of death. Someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Misham the stamp of death. How? How? I don't know what you mean by how. I can show you how someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Misham the stamp of death. His daughter?
I'm not sure it's entirely clear to me what this proves, Mr. Justice.
Huh? Was I wrong?
I believe we have shown probable intent to kill. Except the killer would be her judge and the victim you. Yarg!
Consider that a warning, Mr. Justice. Think before presenting it next time.
Okay, well. Fuck that up. What do we have? I can show you how someone with the intent to kill sent the stamp of death. I don't know what that means. If you wanted to kill someone you couldn't meet, but you knew you read letters, stamp would be the perfect weapon. Where's your proof? I want proof. Show us evidence. Proof. Show me proof. Might not have evidence per se, but things are finally starting to come together. What is it? Your fists are trembling. I think I know what happened. I don't believe it, but I can see it. I think I know how Mr. Misham was killed. Fill us in, Mr. Justice. A certain piece of evidence points to the truth, Your Honor.
Y'all losing me. Y'all losing me here.
I can show you how someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Misham the stamp of death. Okay. Well, I was willing to give it a shot. It's like, how would someone send the stamp? Why? Through the mailbox, of course. But no. Clearly that's not what they want us to go with. The paintings, the forgeries.
I'm not sure it's entirely clear to me what this proves.
What's left? What other evidence do we have? Oh. Okay. Apparently it was the other envelope. Alright, well. I'll take a break and then we'll find out how that was the right answer. Alright. So. It was the red envelope all along. Let's get some context here.
Isn't this the envelope, the one from 7 years ago?
Think about the text of the letter again. There were 2 pages in the envelope. This is page 1. Oh, I forgot what it said. Okay, fine. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, that makes sense. It's been hours since I read the letter. Completely forgot everything about it. And this is page 2. I want to draw your attention to one phrase in particular. Send in the enclosed envelope with the enclosed stamp within 3 days. The enclosed stamp, Your Honor.
Oh! In other words, if I have this straight, A stamp! Poison! On the stamp! Lick, lick, grasp! End quote.
Now, what if he had done exactly as the letter asked?
He would sign the document, put it in the envelope, and put the stamp on it, right? Then he would put it in his letterbox.
15 minutes wouldn't have elapsed between affixing the stamp and mailing the letter. But the clock started ticking, and when the time came, he drew his last breath. And the murder weapon would be taken away from the scene.
Quite conveniently, thanks to the postal system. Thanks, Obama.
Such a splendid imagination you have, Fairforehead. Let me confirm one thing with you, if I might. So, this present stamp was inside this envelope from 7 years ago. Yeah? Is that what you'd have us... Is that what you'd have us believe? Really?
Well, it is a little bit of a stretch, but there's a possibility.
Yes, a very small possibility. How small, I wonder? A poison stamp in this envelope. A stamp that then becomes a murder weapon? How do you intend to prove this seeming coincidence?
Well...
Ack! It was 7 years ago and we don't even know who sent the letter. And your answer is silence, I see. Very well, I move to...
It's not nice to pick on the Fraulein, Clavier.
What? Oh.
What?
Emma? Well, like my Christoph Gavin impression? Did I sound like him?
Okay. I gotta do an impression. I gotta do Emma trying to do Christoph's voice. Okay, so Christoph is...
It's not nice to pick on the Fraulein.
And then Emma is like...
It's not nice to...
Okay, so...
It's not nice to pick on the Fraulein, Clavier. Well, like my Christoph Gavin impression? Did I sound like him?
Don't quit your day job.
Don't you have a crime scene to be looking after, Fraulein Detective? Someone had to come dig you all out of the mess you're making of this case? Mess? You know, none of this would happen if you just trusted in science a little bit more. You can find out if that stamp was in that envelope easy. Care to explain yourself, Fraulein Detective? Glare at me all you want, but science is on my side. It's all in the residue, right? That's right!
The poison detection spray. Produce the red envelope at once. You can open it on the authority of the court.
Oh.
Well, would you look at that?
No mistaking it. That's atropine residue.
I don't believe it. A murder weapon from the past. Now, 7 years later, it bears its fangs at last.
Absolutely outrageous. Tell me why. Why didn't this murder take place 7 years ago?
Well,
There's one possibility. Maybe Mr. Misham figured it out.
Figured what out?
He realized that the person who sent that letter wanted him dead. So he sent his reply with a different stamp.
And put his decisive evidence in a frame. Hank, you're still here? Can I make a statement here on record? I, Spark Razor Tooth Brushel, claim this scoop is mine. Drew Misham killed in cold blood. By sender of 7-year-old letter. End quote. No, maybe some more succulent. Star falls after 7 years delay. End quote. Order! 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 I see no room for further argument here. Though I admit, this is all coming as quite a shock. To think that the murder weapon reached his mouth after 7 years. Stamp his ticket straight to afterlife. End quote. Uh-oh, I think the witness is a bad influence on our judge. I see no need for further debate on this matter. The sender of that letter 7 years ago could hardly have been our defendant.
Apollo, I think we just won.
Very well. This court finds the defendant.
Is this the bright future of our legal system?
Prosecutor Gavin?
A ticket to the afterlife from 7 years ago? Tickets for Gavin's shows are invalid after 2 weeks.
But it doesn't make sense any other way.
It boggles my mind that so many people haven't noticed this. There's a fatal contradiction in her Furhard's claim.
A contradiction?
A poison stamp was placed in this envelope 7 years ago, whereupon it was framed until now. If that's the case, then why would Vera Misham have done what he did?
Emma explained that. He must have realized it was poison.
Therein lies the rub. 7 years ago, the forger Vera Misham sends the trap and puts the stamp in a frame. I do not debate this, but this begs the question. Why 7 years later did he use that stamp on the night of the murder? Surely you don't mean to suggest that Mr. Misham simply forgot? He put the murder weapon in a frame on his desk for 7 years and forgot? You expect us to believe he sprang the trap on himself?
While I admit this is all quite shocking myself, it does seem highly unlikely that he would fall afoul of a trap that had been sitting on his desk for 7 years.
Apollo, I don't think we're winning anymore.
I'm glad to see we're all back in the real world now. Welcome back to reality. We've been waiting for you.
Okay, then how do you explain the poison stamp that was in this envelope?
The poison stamp? Where exactly is this poison stamp again? Have you brought it to court for us? I see no proof that such a thing ever existed.
What about the atricinin residue, huh?
Oh, I agree, that does seem to be atricinin residue. But her forehead, it's certainly no stamp.
Yeah, but...
Even if your precious poison stamp did exist, Vera Misham never would have used it. That is all.
I believe we've come to a conclusion. Again.
Apollo, were we wrong the whole time? I can't believe it. The poison traces match up. It can't be coincidence.
I'd like to bring some closure to this issue sometime this year. Mr. Justice?
Yes, Your Honor?
Let's review the facts and see where we stand. 7 years ago, Vera Misham received a red envelope. There were traces of the poison atricinin on the document inside that envelope. A similar trace was also found at the crime scene, on this tiny picture frame. The defense has indicated the possibility of a yellow envelope, an envelope that left the scene of the crime with the poison stamp on it.
Yes, but even if this envelope contained a poison stamp, and Vera Misham, knowing this, put it in a frame, he never would have used that stamp.
I'm afraid you're right, which means there's a fatal flaw in the defense's case.
I haven't been on the wrong track this whole time, I'm sure of it. The traces of atricinin, the envelope, the frame, and Vera Misham's mysterious death. They're all connected somehow.
Well, Mr. Justice, do you have a conclusion for us?
The defense stands by its case, Your Honor. We've seen that the logical outcome of the evidence makes no sense, which means that one of our clues must be a fake.
Ah, a fake clue. Fascinating. And if we find this fake, your wild fantasies will prove quite reasonable, yeah?
The fake clue that's thrown us off the poison's trail is none other than...
This frame is the fake clue? Without a doubt, Your Honor.
Wasn't it you who presented this evidence to the court?
Oh, hold on a second, Apollo. The poison on the envelope, that frame, and the coffee mug. They're all connected somehow.
Oh, right. Sigh. I can hear it already. It looks like the fake was you, Hair Forehead.
We can flog ourselves later, Apollo. Now's the time for thinking.
The fake clue that's thrown us off the poison's trail is none other than...
The victim was a fake clue? I'm afraid I don't understand.
I'll explain. We have an envelope, a frame, and a mug linked by poison. That all makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the victim himself.
Congratulations, you've completely lost me. So the fake evidence is none other than the master of fake himself, the forger. It makes a good story, I'll give you that.
The fake clue. Fakes. Forgeries. Ah!
I know that face. That's the I just had an idea face.
I don't know if I'm right, but I'm going with it anyway. What if our forger is the fake?
Come again?
70 years ago, our forger sniffed a trap and stepped aside. 70 years passed. Now the forger stumbles into that very same trap and dies. Why?
That's what I want to know.
Because the forger who was killed was a fake.
Here we are again. The victim was a fake.
Uh-huh. One forger smelled the trap, one forger fell into the trap. That's two forgers, and one of them was a fake.
Order! Order! Order!
So you are telling us that Drew Misham, the victim, was a fake? Well, if he was a fake, who was the real forger? You'd better not be claiming there was some kind of switcheroo.
I'm afraid you're going to have to back up your story. Mr. Justice, show us just who the real Drew Misham was.
If Drew Misham wasn't the real forger, there's only one other person it could have been. Understood, Your Honor. Forger Drew Misham was himself a forgery. The real forger was... There can be only one explanation, really. The real identity of the forger known as Drew Misham is none other than his only daughter, Vera Misham.
Order! 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 Mr. Justice, this is going out on a limb even for you.
I kinda agree. I mean, Vera, a forger.
Let's consider it before you write it off entirely. If you look at the paintings in the studio, one fact becomes quite clear. Forgery had been taking place in that studio for quite some time. The forger wasn't caught in that trap 7 years ago. This can only mean that the one who was caught in the trap wasn't the forger.
Well, actually, that does make a certain kind of sense.
One more thing. Only 2 sets of fingerprints were found in the forger's studio. Drew Misham's and Vera Misham's. If we know that Drew Misham wasn't the forger, that leaves only one possibility by process of elimination. The forger was Vera Misham. Well,
Fascinating.
Vera Misham? You've been paying attention to the trial so far?
Let's just ask her and be done with it, shall we? Who are you? Who is the forger, Drew Misham?
was that an expression of emotion I saw on her face? She's staring holes into Prosecutor Gavin's face.
I'm used to being stared at by Frauleins, believe me. So they usually talk to me too. Tell us, were you the one who forged those works of art?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So the forger, Drew Misham, was you?
Yes, it was me.
What?
cord was in an uproar, and it wasn't coming down. We had to break for a 10-minute recess. To be continued.